Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new MVP radio show. Brennan Miller, John Vicari, Dan Passante, MVP back in full form to start a NFL season, a fall school year. And guys, we're on Zoom. This is quarantine edition. This is not how we thought we would begin this show. We had plans to do this show in the fall semester up at Ithaca with VIC Radio. Right now, currently not going to happen. We are in our own homes, but still eager and ready to give people maybe a little escape from what's happening in the world through football and us yelling at each other. So glad you guys hopped on Zoom, and I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. John, also, I feel like, we've worked together for like 2 years at this point, complete, but we're missing like one of our usual crew.
We are. Nick Friend is recently graduated and working in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan with NBC and Fox affiliate, and he's doing a great job. He's interviewed a lot of cool people. John Kerry, not to get political, but he interviewed him. That's pretty cool, And I always knew he was a newsman, and
even before
Walter Cronkite.
Even before he knew he was a newsman.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Maybe because you go to Ithaca, modern day David Muir, but yeah, I could sense it. So congrats to Nick. Maybe he's watching, maybe he's not, but yes. So anything, Dan, off the top you want to talk about before we get into everything related to sports?
I mean, it's just weird. Here we are. We did MVP a few times at VIC. Wasn't officially MVP like we are now, but here we are. We're ready to talk some sports the only way that we can right now.
Yeah, and Dan, me and you have a class together, but John, this is like the first time that I've seen you because we don't have any class together. The only time we've ever been on Zoom at the same time was for our fantasy draft like a week and a half ago, and that was it. Like so this is weird to be able to like see you guys, for the first time really since we went home in March.
Yeah, no. It's a crazy time, and my good lighting from that fantasy draft is gone. So now I'm back to this. I'll try and figure it out though. But yes, first episode lighting stinks. But yeah,
a ring light,
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to buy a mic and like a spotlight. I don't know, but all the professors I've had that taught us lighting are very ashamed of me right now. But it's okay.
I'm sure.
All right, so we'll transition to the NFL, and we'll give a full X's and O's preview as well as our picks, which if, viewers of us over the last 2 years remember, we always conclude our show with giving NFL picks, a game of the week, a lock, an upset, and we will be doing that. But I think what needs to be touched on the top of this show is just this isn't a traditional 2020 NFL season. No matter how you slice and dice it, there's restrictions because of COVID in terms of fans in attendance as well, which benefited the teams, an expanded roster, an expanded practice squad, and that not so much for more people to get the opportunity, but because there might be players that go down due to COVID and teams are going to, need people to fill out their roster. So definitely a strange time, and credit to the NFL so far have done a great job. I believe the numbers of 1,000 or so people, players tested and coaches, only 5 throughout training camp have come back positive. So they've contained this as much as possible, but still not, ideally how you want to go forward with the season. And also, which we can touch on as well, the social issues that have impacted this season as well. The Black Lives Matter. And in this week 1, the Black National Anthem will be played before every game, and obviously a storyline that people and media outlets will be covering the team's reactions to the U.S. National Anthem and the Black Anthem, and if there'll be a show of unity before each of these games. And interesting stuff. And, it's not I wouldn't say weird, but the fact that both of these storylines are mashing at the same time definitely adds for a lot of intrigue in terms of off-the-field stories.
Yeah, and I think when you take a look at it, obviously it kind of plays into how the world has kind of been shaped in the last few months where, yes, things are very, very different than they were in the past, but we kind of have to move forward through this stuff. Obviously, you can't play a regular NFL season. You got to do the COVID testing. You have to make sure that everyone's safe. And if players don't feel safe, obviously they have the option to opt out of the season without really any huge repercussions other than them not being able to play and using a year in their contract. But at the same time, you have to keep moving forward. John, you mentioned the playing of the national anthem before games, along with what has been called the Black national anthem as well. And these moments of unity that each individual team has the opportunity to show for themselves. Like we saw with the Kansas City-Houston game, Kansas City decided to stay out in the field, and they did have one player take a knee during the national anthem, while Houston decided that they were going to stay in the locker room. And then after the national anthem, both teams came out and showed that moment of unity, locking arms in the middle of the field in a act that was really put together by the two quarterbacks of the teams, two quarterbacks who are going to be kind of the face of the league for the next 10, 15 years in Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And I think that the fact that the NFL has allowed these teams to do things individually and do what they think is right is a huge step forward. And it really contributes to the fact that these players, they see an issue, they want change to be made, and that's the thing that they're pushing for as teams and individuals.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've never had to break down whether a season will happen or not. That just shows how insane things are. And to be honest with you, I don't know. I've been in my house for 5 months. I have no idea what's going on in the NFL. It doesn't look good whether they're going to be able to get done with everything. Football has so many more people than any other sport, especially not in a bubble. I mean, hey, I really hope that they get it done. Trust me, I want to see football all year, but I don't know that we can expect that they can get through it. But like we said, so far, they've been doing a fantastic job. And as far as social issues go, I mean, who would have thought that the NFL, literally the bad guys would now be putting these social justice phrases and words in their end zone, talking about the Black national anthem. The NFL, they are the ones that everyone is fighting. Their fan base doesn't listen. They don't care. You saw them boo in Kansas City. And now they're doing all of this. It's really showing that things are changing, and that you can resist it, but it's still going to change. Things are changing for the better. And when the NFL is forced to do things like this, that's the only time they will ever do it. Let's not forget about that. They were late to the party. That I think goes to show that the real change that is going on, especially when a huge organization like the National Football League now feels like they have to be socially aware.
Yeah, and Dan, I like that point you make with the NFL being late to the party, because they had an opportunity to do all of this stuff years ago. Like when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee, this is what he was taking a knee for. But no one like recognized that, and people were like, yeah, it's disrespectful to the flag. No, you don't understand. This is him taking a stand for what he believes in and using his right as an American to protest that. And the NFL didn't stand with him at all. They didn't look at that player who is making a name for their league and say, this is what is right, this is what we stand for. Instead, they pushed him out of the league. And now, however many years later, they're saying, you know what? That's on us. We were wrong. And now they're kind of trying to catch up to everything that they had an opportunity to take advantage of years prior.
Yeah, and I think you guys both touched on it. There's going to be dissatisfaction with how the players and the league have handled this on both sides, but they're letting the players decide. It's not that it's no longer in the NFL's hands, but they're letting the players do what they want to do and do what they feel is right. I want to circle back also to the bubble because Dan alluded to it. Do you guys think that this can happen, that they could succeed for a 17-week schedule? And I guess we could throw in the playoffs there as well without a bubble, because I'm not sure. With everything going around, the bubble has worked prior. There's obviously been a couple COVID cases, in basketball and hockey, and that was sort of before, and there's been restrictions of people breaking the bubble and a little drama there. But for the most part, it's gone on, pretty well. Baseball, on the other hand, has had I don't think any team this season has played the same amount of games. It's been that nuts, and so many 7-inning doubleheaders that my head's spinning. So I'm just asking you guys to conclude. Do you think that football could actually succeed without a bubble? And obviously, this is just predicting, but I'm skeptical. I'm hoping for it. I'm rooting for it. I think we all are, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
I really hope so, but I have no idea. Obviously the MLB doesn't have a bubble, and like we just said, that's kind of a disaster. The NBA has been able to get through without any issues so far. We'll see. I mean, I always think about the story that went on with a few of the players in the MLB where they didn't listen, they went out, they got penalized. I think that's just way too easy to happen, especially with football when there's so many more people. I'm definitely not optimistic, but hey, I hope we get football all year.
Yeah, and we had that case with the Seahawks rookie who was trying to sneak someone into training camp. So we already know that NFL players are going to go out and see people whenever they travel to these cities and do that kind of stuff. And it just becomes, how effectively are these teams going to be able to keep their players, in their own little confined space? I don't want to call it a bubble because the teams are traveling, to different cities, but at the same time, how well are these teams able to keep their teams or keep the players on the team staying with one another, as opposed to seeing other people who may be, going to clubs and being exposed to civilians who may have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think what benefits the NFL is the fact that it is once a week. They aren't traveling every day like baseball was and going maybe to multiple cities per week in terms of what the MLB has done. But again, the bubble system has worked, and you thought the NFL had the resources to do so, especially because they're still not getting that fan revenue from most of their franchises. I believe Jacksonville, obviously we saw fans with Kansas City on Thursday, but I believe today on this Sunday, September 13th, Jacksonville will be the only game with some fans in the stands. So, I thought they would go bubble, but so now we'll break down the X's and O's applying to this game, and I think we have to start with what we know, and those are the New York football teams. And I mean, Dan might argue there's only one in the Bills, but
I would also argue that. So.
Yeah. The Giants and Jets as well. And I mean, I think it's similar to last year where the Bills have the highest expectations. The Bills could win an AFC East title for the first time in our lifetimes because, Tom Brady is now down south with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Dan, I want to start with you. I think you'll probably be as pessimistic as a Bills fan comes, I mean, you guys got all these free agents, but, hey, Josh Norman's already out for the first 3 weeks for them. Like, things aren't already going your way. So, what are your expectations for the Bills this season?
Well, I think that they should compete for the AFC East. I'd love to sit here and be like, we're going to win. But that's just, we all know the Bills, and we all know that is never a good thing to guarantee anything with them. I think that they can. We put in the notes that we think the Bills and the Jets could win the AFC East. I think that's very possible. I have such a hard time ruling out New England just because the ghost of Tom Brady is, I don't know. I don't know because Bill Belichick really is that great. And we always write off Miami every year. Most of the time, we're always right. So I think that Buffalo really should be, in the best case scenario, expected to win the AFC East this year, and then we'll see from there.
Yeah, in terms of Buffalo, I think me and Brennan agree. As outside, looking on, the Pats still aren't going to go away, in my opinion. I think, the Bills should be the favorite. If I'm a betting man, I'm putting the Bills to win the AFC East. But everyone thinks the Patriots are just going to go by the wayside this season. They still have Cam Newton. They went out and got a quarterback, and with him under Belichick, maybe he returns to 2014, 2015 Cam. It's remained to be seen. There's not a lot of weapons offensively. Their defense is probably the worst it's been maybe in the last 4 years. So, I wouldn't call them the favorites, but the Pats are going to stick around. I think the Jets early on are going to look better than they probably, actually are. So they'll stick around and make things threatening. Until the Dolphins start Tua, they're not a threat. But I think it's going to be close. But the Bills I think should win it out. Brennan, any thoughts?
Yeah, honestly, I'm completely out on the Pats. Like you guys are mentioning them being like maybe a team that's fighting for that AFC's title, but I'm out on the Pats, and it has nothing to do with Cam Newton. I mean, I think he's going to have a great year. He's on a prove-it deal for less than $1 million with incentives up to, I think, $7.5 million. So I think he's going to have a fantastic year and be the top tier of AFC quarterbacks. The thing that worries me with the Pats is the defense. The defense was very good last year. The best defense that we've seen in a lot. Beginning of the year, they were one of the best defenses of all time. Then they kind of slowed down at the end of the year. But they have had, I think, 6 guys sit out because of COVID, and guys who are very, very good players. So I think that the offense, while they're not going to be as good as they were last year with Tom Brady being able to take advantage of the weapons that he has, I think the offense is going to be fine, but the defensive side of the ball is going to be the sticking point, especially when the Bills went out and got one of the best I'd say probably top 20 wide receivers in the league in Stephon Diggs this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's, again, I think the Pats are going to be a little closer than you do, Brendan, but I think it's the Bills' division to lose. And, maybe they'll do it in typical Bills fashion, but we'll see. Now the other 2 teams, Giants and Jets, I think people know, I am a Giants diehard, and so I'll break them down first. They had 4 wins last season. I didn't think they'd have 4 wins last season. I thought they'd have more than 4 wins last season. They didn't. But the positives were that we found the quarterback. People could look at the 18 fumbles last year, which led the league. 11 of them were lost. I understand. The interceptions weren't great. It was a 24-12 ratio. So, for 2 touchdowns he threw, Jones also turns it over via the sky, right? But I think that they have to take a step forward. Just looking at their schedule, which is the 7th easiest based on last year's records going forward, they have to take a step forward. They can't. And there's pressure because it's a new era. There's a new guy in town, Joe Judge, and the only storylines were, involving the Giants training camp this season haven't been anything COVID-related or injury-related. It's been that this Joe Judge guy runs practices like high school football coaches. Right? No names on the back of, or on the helmets, on the back of the jerseys.
One of the only teams fully tackling.
Yeah. As soon as they could tackle, like Daniel Jones was hitting the linebackers. Like, it was crazy. No, but it was definitely a unique practice. And in the New York media market, cutesy doesn't play. That's something that I've, very adamant about. I hope that he's being genuine. I think he is, just based on Joe Judge's first press conference, because he was all just rah, and we're going to play downhill football and all these, typical stereotypes that come with a hard-nosed football coach. So I think that's genuinely how he is. But for a lot of former Belichick assistants, a lot of that has blown up in their faces, and you hope that's not the case for the Giants. I have trust in them. I think there's a reason that they didn't go with the college coach in Matt Rule, who went to Carolina and decided in, early January to go with Joe Judge. They trust, obviously Belichick. I mean, who wouldn't take a Belichick disciple at this point? And I think the pieces are there, at least offensively. You have Saquon, a Pro Bowler. You have Danny Dimes, the future. I think he takes a huge step forward this year. He's not going to be perfect, but I think I saw enough last year to really put all my, cards in the basket there of revolving him. The receiving core is still average. Golden Tate's old. Sterling Shepard's, I think going to have to be the number 1 receiver, even though he might be listed as the number 2 on the depth chart. And Darius Slayton, who had a great season last year towards the tail end, I think will take a bigger role. The defense is just terrible. I mean, I joke about it with, my friends, you guys. The one corner who showed progress last year got arrested in May for 4 counts of armed robbery. You can't have that, especially during a global pandemic. I don't want you going out and doing that stuff. I mean, the reason it annoys me is because as a rookie, I can't say that the Giants gave him, what he deserved. Obviously, he's still in a rookie contract. But the Mayors and Tisches, if he was having a problem financially, I think would have helped. I don't think it was out of need, but out of desire. It was unfortunate to see. He's on the commissioner's exempt list, so he's gone. And the Giants just have no secondary depth. They brought in a linebacker in Blake Martinez, so that's a little better. Leonard Williams from the Jets on the D-line, but the secondary stinks. I don't know how they're going to stop anybody this season defensively. I predict 5 or 6 wins, which is an increase from 4. And that's all I'll say on the Giants, because I could already see you guys nodding off.
No, I agree with your Giants kind of analysis there, but I think that the storyline is very similar for both of these teams, where the defenses on both sides are terrible. So bad. I've got both these teams slated for 4 or 5 wins, and that's pretty much exclusively because the Giants play in a division with the Redskins, the Washington football team.
Yeah.
Yes, the Washington football team. And the Jets play in the division with the Patriots, who I don't have, who I think are very bad, and the Miami Dolphins, who at this point are still starting Fitzmagic. So 4 or 5 wins for each of these sides, but at the same time, the defenses are so bad that I think that they're going to luck themselves into a few wins. And the Jets, John, you talked about the Giants quite a bit, so I'm going to go on the Jets offense. They made a lot of steps forward on the offensive side of the ball. They took a lineman in the first round in Mekhi Becton, who's supposed to be very, very good. He was up there with like the top 3 offensive guards who could have been the first guard picked. It really didn't. The order didn't matter. It was just kind of whichever player the team preferred. And then they drafted a wide receiver. I forget which wide receiver they drafted, but they took a wide receiver in the first round as well. So the offense took some steps forward, but if you can't play on both sides of the ball, I think it's very, very difficult to win games. I think both these teams, while they have promise on the offensive side, obviously the Giants have Saquon, who is, top 5 running back in the league. They have promise on the offensive side. The defense lets them down in a lot of aspects and won't let them win a lot of games.
Yeah,
No.
I agree with your Jets analysis. Dan, anything to add before we shift to some other New York sports teams?
Well, I was just going to say that I'm not trying to be Mr. Bills fan here, but I do have a lot of experience with where I'm expecting a bad season. So,
Thanks.
like I would always say, like with Josh Allen, as long as he gets better, it was a good season, And like the worst part about Buffalo a few years ago was like they would be expected to be bad, and they win like 7 games. That's not helpful. You got to win less than 7. Now we're just irrelevant, okay? We're not going to make the playoffs, and you're not going to get a good draft pick. You're in no man's land. So, hopefully, for the Giants' sake, the Jets' sake, honestly, I would say hopefully we have a terrible season because now we're going to get great draft picks, and someday they will be great. But, hey, you never know. This season's so crazy. We'll see what happens.
The other New York sports teams, I think that I guess given some New York people some agita have been the baseball teams, Yanks and Mets. And I think, Brennan, I can already see on your facial expression. I think most Yankee fans thought 60 games, we're going to have 30 while only playing 35, and we'll coast the rest of the season. It's going to be easy. The top contenders were going to be in neutral for the whole season, but it's turned into just a dogfight. Everyone, I think technically is still in it. There's no teams eliminated from contention. The Orioles and the Tigers could possibly make the playoffs, even though people have derided them as maybe the worst 2 teams, in a long time, and they're still hanging around. And obviously the Yankees have been affected by injury, Brennan.
John, this is the worst Yankees stretch that we have ever seen. Yeah. There has never been a team that went through a stretch like the New York Yankees did over the last 2 weeks. Yes, they've started winning. But they're also playing the Orioles. They won the last game in a set against the Blue Jays, and then they've won 3 games against the Orioles, who, while they are competing for that final playoff spot, are, as you mentioned, supposed to be one of the 2 worst teams in the entire league. We saw the Yankees kind of get this way in, I believe it was 2013, when they kind of just hit the tail end of that 2009 playoff or World Series hangover. But really we haven't seen a team perform this bad. The best part of this Yankees team was supposed to be the bullpen. The bullpen came in and just gave up home runs like nobody's business. They were giving up leads that the team had in the late innings, whether it be the 5th and the 6th in those 7th inning doubleheaders, or the 7th and the 8th, or even Chapman in the 9th giving up, long balls to lose games that they should have won. The fact that they've started to turn it around is a good sign. And I mean, you have those momentum boosters like Luke Voit, who at this point is, I believe, first in the league in WRC plus, which measures a player's effectiveness of the plate against all the other players in the league. He's first in the league and obviously tied for first in the league in home runs with the GOAT Mike Trout. But at the same time, you have to look at every aspect of the team, and it just hasn't been good. Like they can't get guys hitting consistently. And when the bullpen is out there giving up runs, when that's supposed to be the strongest aspect of this team as a whole, then you go down the drain.
Yeah, and it's a cliche in sports, the hashtag like next man up, but I think it was a Yankee hashtag 2-3 seasons ago because they were so good at, hey, player goes down and the player just fills his void, you know? The wins above replacement for the Yankees is just different than everyone else because their replacement is that good, you know? And this team was supposed to be stacked coming in this year. And again, we touched on some of the injuries, but you can't have Gary Sanchez be sat for, Eric Kratz. You can't have the out.
Has performed better up to this point.
You can't have these outfielders like I think Clint has definitely delivered, but there's a lot of positions to be won, especially for 2021 with these young guys, and they're just not playing to expectations. And you touched on the biggest issue. You could look at the offense all you want, but this bullpen has been horrendous. It has been absolutely terrible. Obviously, this past weekend, the Friday and Saturday versus, again, as you mentioned too, it's the Orioles. We're supposed to beat them. The Yanks are supposed to beat the Orioles, but the bullpen has recovered. But it's looking at the standings, they are the second wild card spot, and they're the 8th seed in this new MLB playoff format. We're not the Brooklyn Nets here. We shouldn't be the 8th seed. That's going to get crushed by the Bucks in the first round. They're the Yankees. I mean, come on, there's an expectation there. It's it's been frustrating. I think, Dan, you could tell me and Brennan's frustration with the season, and but there's still 4 games over 500, right? So I mean, it could be worse. You could be 4 games under and be the New York Mets.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the Mets. I think the one strong spot for the Yankees up to this point has been their starting pitching, which obviously comes as a surprise to a lot of people, but the starting pitching has been really good in the Bronx, but I think it's been even better for the Mets. I mean, DeGrom is on his track. At this point, he's kind of blowing away the competition for his 3rd straight Cy Young, which is just insanity. And I think my favorite thing is Mets fans looking at DeGrom who's about to win his 3rd straight Cy Young and being like, doesn't matter, we're not in the playoffs, DeGrom's the GOAT. And it's like, kind of matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I wrote in our Google Doc, DeGrom getting run support 2020, like that's crazy. He's actually getting run support, which is nice, but the back end of their starting rotation hasn't played up to snuff. They've had unfortunate opt-outs. Stroman opted out early on in the season, and Cespedes after that opening day home run, he was supposed to be awesome. Oh, he's back, and yeah, he's gone. So the Mets, I think, should be a playoff team, but in this chaotic 60-game season, you have to perform, and they haven't done that, enough. And they're still in it, though. I mean, they're 21-25. The Marlins are the 8th seed right now. Imagine that at 21-21, and obviously, no one has the same record in baseball due to teams having to sit out a certain amount of games with COVID. Obviously, will most likely be made up by the end of the year unless other teams get stricken by it. But both teams hanging on, and not what you thought the situation would be like in September 13th if it was a normal season, and even in the 60-game season for New York baseball. So we'll shift to hockey. There's no way really to segue into let's go baseball into hockey, but we're gonna do it without the traditional radio break. And Brennan, I think we just want to touch on this. We're Ranger fans, and we still obviously follow hockey, but it's hard to. Oh, look at that! That's a beauty of a hat. Established 1926. That's a good hat. It's tough to watch New York Islanders in the Eastern Conference Final. Not gonna lie, they're such a talented team. Currently down 2-1 to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but battled back in Game 3. Didn't go away with a team that I thought that would beat them in 5. And maybe that's I don't want to say it's biased, but I thought Tampa Bay just skill wise was just so much better. I know the Islanders have Matt Barzal and their 3rd and 4th lines, which win in playoff hockey are just, some of the best. But they have been battling, that Game 1 after getting beat 8-2. They've stayed with the Lightning in Game 2 and Game 3. And I don't think they're going to win the series, but they've definitely had a great postseason in this bubble. And their first Eastern Conference Final since 1993. It's definitely, I think, a story that has been, overlooked just because everyone else in New York is playing.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think this is kind of, the Lightning's year. We saw them last year I think they got the most points of any team in the history of the NHL, and then got knocked out in the first or second round of the playoffs. So I actually do have the Lightning winning the cup just because I think that they are a very, very good team. But to see the Islanders go out and lose 8-2 in game number 1, and then be able to come back and play with the Lightning in the second game, the third game of the series, it's commendable. But at the same time, that 8-2 game is really an indication of, the difference between these two teams. I think the Lightning are very, very deep. I think they're very good at scoring goals, and obviously that doesn't bode well for the Islanders moving forward. I mean, they've had a good run up to this point, but I just don't see them moving past the Lightning, a team that really is kind of on a very hot streak and is able to put the puck in the back of the net very, very effectively.
Yeah, I think the Lightning have benefited from the fact that they've got to have an off season before this postseason began, got all their guys healthy for the most part, besides Stamkos. And again, it's a good cup prediction because they are the best skilled team left. That game 4 today on NBC at 3, which I'm sure everyone will be watching over football. In my wish, but not gonna happen. But I'll definitely be tuning in when Red Zone's a bit lacking today. Now from bubble to bubble, from the NHL to the NBA, I got to give it to him, Dan. This wasn't a chalk up NBA playoffs. It wasn't up Bucks, Clippers. It has been in the West, but there's been, it's not decided yet. But the Bucks are gone. I didn't think the Bucks would be gone. It's been exciting. I wish the Nets gave the Raptors a little more of a fight to begin with. Not that I'm a Nets fan. I just, would like to have seen that just because they had absolutely nobody. But the NBA playoffs have been exciting. There's been some good moments created in the bubble. Obviously, the highlight of it, looking back, and people will look back for years, is obviously that they sort of started this not from the ground up, but in this modern social justice fight. They're the ones who said, you know what, we're just going to sit out today. And they did so, and that was Milwaukee Bucks I'm referring to. And, it's definitely been an interesting NBA bubble storyline-wise. And games, even though these guys maybe weren't in, there would be questions about basketball shape, they've been, very exciting, and there's been some great performances. And really just looking at Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray, who put on some Jordan-esque games early on this playoff.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA playoffs really have been great. They finished up the regular season. They've been great with social justice as well. But you mentioned the games. I mean, with the MLB, things have been good. We don't know about the NFL yet. The NHL has been great, too. There's concerns about that. The NBA games really are exciting, and I'm not just saying that. Even with the virtual fans, things have been really fun to watch. Just some genuine storylines going on, including today. There's more games going on. The game 6, Clippers Nuggets at 1:00 today. Again, I'm sure people are going to be flipping back and forth between the NFL and the Clippers Nuggets. I might do it myself. But the NBA playoffs has been a lot of fun. Celtics and the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals starting in a few days. The Lakers will take on the winner of the Clippers, the Nuggets. So really just depends on who Charles Barkley picks to win, and that's who's not going to win today. That's the only thing we have to keep track of. We saw it the other night inside the NBA. That was absolutely unbelievable. But it really has been interesting to watch this bubble situation. Players talking about how they can't get away from the game like they like to take breaks in between the games. That has really not been a situation since they're always around basketball. And the social justice things going on. They have words and phrases on the back of their jerseys like education reform, Black Lives Matter. They have Black Lives Matter on the court that they're playing on, really just taking it to another step and leading this thing, which, the NBA partnering with the WNBA, some players that have been social justice warriors for years now, now coming into the NBA is a really big deal and a really big step forward, and people can disagree with it. That's tough. This is their First Amendment right to protest and to voice how they feel, and they're making that a priority of theirs, which, regardless of the message, I always support them speaking their mind.
Yeah, no, circling back to the social issues, I think the one maybe strain that people had was that they protested and not, didn't do their job. I think that's what most Americans would like, to protest their issue and not get flack from their job. And I'm not saying, the NBA is supposed to punish them by any means, but, they had the resources to say, you know what, we could take a day off and, you know, the NBA won't be reeling from it, but there won't be pressure to get us back on, that the players decided. And I think more than any other league, I think you guys would agree with this, it's player ran. Obviously, there's owners like the MLB, NHL, NFL, but it's a players league. The personnel decisions go through LeBron, and also how they're going to handle issues that transcend basketball go through the players, and, primarily LeBron and the stars that are in the bubble. And, there's going to be skeptics on both sides of how they're handling it. Should they not be playing at all? Should they, but they've handled it, I think, pretty well. I think it's definitely made a change. And, just in terms of a strictly on basketball, topic, it's been good to watch, Dan, as you've alluded to.
So obviously today is the opening Sunday of the NFL season. We talked a little bit earlier about, some of the coronavirus and social justice changes that have been made to this NFL season. But I just kind of want to talk about football, for now, kind of just want to get into the actual games themselves. And, with the changes, teams are still going to move forward. Teams are still going to play. And we still kind of have to look at, as far as our fantasy teams, like who's injured, who's playing, but also, who the favorites are, and a lot of the storylines going into this NFL season. I think some of the biggest ones have to do with the quarterbacks and, the quarterback carousel that has kind of moved itself around and moved some of these veteran guys to different teams. Obviously, the biggest signing of the offseason was Tom Brady going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With that, Jameis Winston jumps to the Saints. He's going to back up Drew Brees this year. Teddy Bridgewater, who was backing up Drew Brees, got signed by the Panthers. Cam Newton went to the Patriots, and, it all kind of comes full circle where one quarterback leaves, another one fills that spot. But I think it's going to be very, very interesting to watch this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, who, while they weren't great last year, have just went out and signed so many players and have improved, especially that offense, so much. Brady at quarterback. Obviously, we had Evans and Godwin, who were two of the top 10 receivers in the league last year. Evans dealing with a hamstring injury to start the year, but at the same time, he's dealt with that for his entire career, so he should be fine. They go out and sign one of the top 3 tight ends of all time in Rob Gronkowski, where his production is going to be, questionable after not playing last season. But at the same time, he's still a guy who can catch the ball. They've got running backs and Ronald Jones, and they went out and signed Leonard Fournette, who was a surprise cut by the Jaguars, and then solidified the backfield as well. So I think this Bucs team is going to be a team that we have to kind of look for as maybe not a surprise in the NFC, but a team that could do some damage.
Yeah, I think, summary, Bucs aren't the same Bucs that lost to the Giants in Week 3 last year. They've definitely gotten better all around. And I think it's a good transition into our NFL picks. If you don't remember from, consuming Nick French show, maybe you're new to this show, it's a unique format. We bet every game, and we will give you the spread of what is, current. Obviously, it fluctuates, and depending on the site you use, but gambling has become more prevalent, and we don't bet the games with the spread. Obviously, we keep them in mind when making our educated guess, but we just pick outright the winner, and we're going to pick every single game that's still ahead, all 15, because obviously Thursday Night Football in the rear view mirror. And so we'll also do both Monday Night Football games. We also get a upset and a lock, and the lock is, it's got to be less than or equal to -7 in terms of when you're gambling. So, I mean, when it used to be obviously a little different now, but when the Patriots were playing the Dolphins in Week 15 and the Dolphins were tanking and the spread was -17 like a college game, you can't bet that, So it's got to be reasonable, but it can't be
competitive.
Yeah, it can't be too, yeah, exactly. Make it competitive. So we'll go through all the games, and then we'll indicate our lock, our upset, and they're worth more in points, the valuation. I forgot what the point system was now, just off the top of my head. I'm sure we'll figure that out.
It's 1 for a normal win, and then 2 points for your lock, your game of the week, and your upset.
Yes, and the game of the week this week, I determined. I guess we should have been a group decision, but I think about the Saints. I think there's just so many storylines with it. 4:00 on Fox. Rams Cowboys I consider because it's Sunday Night Football, and Cowboys are always a story. But I think that was the game of the week to go with. So. We'll start Dolphins versus Patriots. Patriots 6.5 points. And look, Cam Newton is in the saddle, as we've alluded to, with the Patriots. It's a defense that's coming from a historic year last year and not the same year this year. Brennan mentioned it with the guys who have opted out. Patriots, though, still near a touchdown favorite against the lowly Dolphins. Will there be some Fitzmagic today? I don't think so, and you guys agree.
Yeah, all three of us with the Patriots in this one. And John, I believe you have that as your lock of the week. Am I correct?
I do actually. I'm sorry, I don't. It's it is, but my lock of the week's actually the Eagles. I don't know why. I tried to not underline it. I think it was the same issue that happened last year too, because I didn't put it as my lock. The Eagles did, where that block for some reason just underlined and I can't figure it out. You think
Right, well,
communication major and a Gen Z, I'd be able to figure it out, but no. I think it's the only. I'm just looking at it. The Eagles are my lock, which spoiler alert. But yes, I had the Patriots, but they're not my lock this this Sunday. Thanks for catching that, though. I didn't want the locks, but yeah.
All right, next one on our list is the Browns versus the Ravens. Baltimore is a -7.5 favorite, and I think all three of us are pretty confident in the Ravens in this one. Obviously, they were one of the best teams in the AFC last year. Lamar Jackson is a weapon at quarterback, throwing the ball and being able to run the ball when need be, and that defense is just been improving and improving. So all three of us with the Ravens in that matchup.
Next, we got the Jets. We got the Bills. All three of us got the Bills. We know what we're talking about. That's why we got the Bills. We are smarter than the average bear. We know that the Bills are going to win this game. Brennan and I have it as our lock this week.
Yes, we do.
It's just a smart decision, kids. You're sitting around your house. Who's going to win? The answer is the Bills. That's the answer today. Remember that.
Wow. Yeah, and Dan, you actually have that listed as a Western New York stand-up. So very much appreciate that.
Trying to just emphasize it, drive it home, so there's no questions.
Mm-hmm.
As goofy as it sounds, the one storyline, there's going to be no fans, no Bills Mafia in the parking lot. They're going to have to do it in their own homes.
It's going to be tragic.
Yeah, I'll still break a table.
Yeah.
I'll do it in my basement.
Table sales will, I think, still be, increase and help their local economy. It just, won't be traditional table breaking in a parking lot. It'll be in a backyard instead of a parking lot.
Absolutely.
We go to Raiders versus Panthers. Las Vegas is favorite by 3, and they're not opening up the new stadium today in front of no people. They're playing in Carolina in front of no people. I'll tell you what, man. I'm thinking, the Raiders are going to win this one. Brennan has a pick that I don't like. He has the Panthers. Me and Dan have the Raiders. It's not even good Raiders. It's just bad Panthers. And a new coach in Matt Rule is going to look to make a statement. And I think people are, counting on the Panthers to be a bottom 5 team with a new head coach. But, Brennan, you think they're going to shock the world today?
Yeah, you know what? I like the new head coach, the new quarterback. You got arguably the best running back in the league in your backfield. I think the Panthers offense can move the ball. And I don't know why. I just have this really weird concept of the Raiders where they're always just a 7-9 or an 8-8 team. They could be as good as any team in the AFC West, but I'm still going to mark them down as 7-9 or 8-8, regardless of how much talent they have on their roster. So I really think that this game is kind of a toss-up, and why not give it to the Panthers with that new quarterback, new head coach?
What you're referring to is called the cowboy effect, if you're wondering. Always 8. No. So, yes. Brennan, you take the next one.
Yeah. Seahawks versus Falcons. This one's only a 1-point spread in favor of the Seahawks, but all three of us are taking the Seahawks in this one. I think that the Falcons, I think it's 10 out of 11 starters on offense or first-round picks. So the offense is pretty good. The defense, they went and signed a linebacker. I forget his name, but pretty consistent on the defensive side. But I think the Seahawks just overall have more talent and are a team that is going to compete in the NFC West with the 49ers and arguably the Cardinals. And all three of us are picking the Seahawks in that game.
Next, we got the Eagles and the Washington football team. All three of us have the Eagles over the Washington football team. And I don't think I'm going to pick the Washington football team as long as that is their name. I do not agree with the racial slur that they had as their name. I am very happy that they changed it and they're not offending people anymore. But the Washington football team is just outrageous. I am not picking them. I'm picking them to go 0-16 this year. It's not going to happen.
And that's not a terrible thought. Like, like you only might lose like 2 of those games if you pick them to go 0-16.
Yeah, that's why the Eagles are my lock. You can't tell me, it's rosters aside, players aside, a team that's gone, through this name change and didn't have a mascot ready. You think they'd have something? I know, merchandising, and it's a whole issue, but you think they would have had a plan ready, because this has been asked for a lot of years? Not that they should have predicted that, during 2020 they would have to change it because the sponsors would finally bail out, but you think they would have been a little more prepared, had a name in the bag there that they were going with. Washington football team sounds like an MLS team. There's also been the sexual harassment allegations, including, I believe 10 people in their front office, or in their, I wouldn't maybe call the media front office, but so the radio announcer was also gone. But, allegations with that, they can't win in week 1. There's no way with everything. They're not Washington is not, the historically the franchise isn't used to battling through adversity. That's why the Eagles are my lock. We move now to Bears-Lions and an NFC North matchup. We all have the Bears in this one, and the Lions are favored by 2.5. And I feel like the Lions might be a bit underrated this year. Everyone is, they're the Lions. They're, they haven't won an NFC North in forever. This, Brennan, as a Packers fan. They're sort of, the run of the litter in this division. But Stafford, he's still Matt Stafford. They have Kenny Golladay. Their defense is improved. A lot of people looking at them as maybe a surprise playoff team, but we think that Mitchell Trubisky and Chicago on the road plus 2.5, we're all picking that. And, I don't know. I just feel like the Bears are going to win. I think that's where we are in the same boat as well. Nothing really too analytical about it. Just we think the Lions disappoint.
Here's my thoughts on this game. I think both of these teams are teams that look at that last wild card spot and think that they have a chance. So whoever wins this game is going to go on for the rest of the season saying, hey, we beat the Bears in week 1, or hey, we beat the Lions in week 1, who are perpetually underrated. But whoever loses this game is just going to quit for the rest of the year.
Wow.
I think whoever wins is going to feel really good about the win, and whoever loses is going to feel really bad about the loss. So I also think this is an indication game for the Lions, because there's been kind of some unrest about Matt Patricia, who's been trying to rebuild the Patriots in a Lions uniform, and the players are, I think, starting to turn against him a little bit, and it'll be an indicator, I think, for both teams.
Where did Matt Patricia go to high school, Brennan?
That'd be Vernon Verona High School in Verona, New York, my high school as well. So, got to keep that in mind.
Picking against your boy. And you have the next game.
That is Colts versus Jaguars. Indianapolis is an 8-point favorite. The Colts obviously signing Phillip Rivers this offseason. Forgot to mention him in the quarterback carousel earlier. But he's a guy who has arm talent and is a definite improvement over Jacoby Brissett, who was the quarterback for the Colts last season. I think the offense is pretty good. I think the offense behind Quentin Nelson, who is arguably the best offensive lineman in the league, is very good. And then the defense has stepped up in the last few years with Darius Leonard being an all-pro. So John and I have the Colts winning this one, but Dan, you have the Jags in your upset of the week. The Jaguars, who are arguably the worst team in the entire league, taking down the Colts.
That's right. Yeah, you guys can write that one down. I got the Jaguars beating them this week. The thing is, I was thinking about my upset, and I was like mulling over picking Detroit, but then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just decided, the next game below it is the Jaguars Colts. I would be surprised. I think we would all be surprised. It would be a lot of points. Strategically, the Jags just fell in there. They're going to be upset this week.
I love the thought process of, I don't want to pick the Bears as my upset. So what's the next one I see?
It's true. I was like, I'm not doing that. No, that's why they're the upset this week.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, at least I have a reason, if not a good one. The next game, the Packers and the Vikings. John and I have the Vikings. Brennan's taking the Packers right here.
Of course.
Should be a good one whenever the Packers and the Vikings play, regardless of the year and hopefully the situation. Always a fun game. I don't think picking the Packers is a bad pick at all. I think they're obviously going to be a good team. Minnesota, favored by 2.5, however. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's my upset of the week, too. And I listened to Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week. He said this is the first preseason where his arm hasn't hurt at all. So I expect Aaron Rodgers to throw for 500 yards this game.
Wow, that's lofty.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Even his early seasons, his arm would hurt.
I mean, like, because you go into he explained it. You go into preseason and the coach is kind of expected to throw 400 balls in your first practice. They kind of expect things to be up to snuff, but with the relaxed preseason schedule and not having as many practices, he said this is the first preseason where his arm hasn't hurt after the first week. So big game for Rodgers. 500 yards, 8 touchdowns, 100 rushing yards. Easy.
I think that was just translation. Old man needs rest. No preseason. I think that's what that
Four
was.
years.
The
More years.
Yeah, exactly. The next game, Chargers versus Bengals. What a barn burner to start the 4 o'clock clock. Interesting stories. The Bengals decide to go with Joe Burrow out of LSU, and he's getting a nod right away to start. Chargers are -3, and the game is in Cincinnati. And the Chargers going with the new quarterback as well to start Tyrod Taylor, and they drafted out of Oregon Justin Herbert. I think Herbert will definitely get some looks this season. Not deriding Tyrod Taylor, as Dan knows, has taken teams that maybe don't have the highest expectation to goals that that weren't projected in the preseason. Definitely a guy who could elevate talent around him, but really a journeyman quarterback. I think what benefits the Chargers this season more than others, they didn't have fans last season. Now everyone doesn't have fans, so maybe they'll win a home game or two.
They're used to it. They're not.
Yeah.
Oh, they open SoFi Stadium, right? No, they're on the road.
That's the Rams. Yeah.
Yeah, they're on the road. Never mind. Who's next? Me? Yes. Cardinals versus 49ers. 49ers -6.5. Me and Dan have the 49ers winning this one. John, you have the Cardinals in what really isn't that bad of an upset pick. I mean, the Cardinals are a team that they've kind of become a buzzword this season with Kingsbury and Murray on the offensive side, and they're obviously adding DeAndre Hopkins, who's, top 3 wide receiver in the league. So what's the thought process there, John?
Yeah, everywhere I read and look, people are just talking up the Cardinals. So I decided to, slot them in. The 49ers are in their last 20 games at home, 3-16-1 against the spread. Imagine that, even after, what last year was an NFC championship winning team and very close to a Super Bowl winning team. But hey, I'm buying the hype. I didn't early on. Everyone's talking about it. There's got to be something to it. You have Kyler Murray in his second year. They have a bit of bet. There you go. I knew I'd slip up, but a bit of a better offensive line than last year. Same thing with New York and Daniel Jones. And they got him a huge weapon in DeAndre Hopkins. So he was doing more with less last year, and now he gets Hopkins. I don't know. I'm smelling an upset today. I think the Cards get it done.
Next, our game of the week, the Bucks and the Saints. Brennan and John got the Saints. I got the Bucks. The reason I have the Bucks is just because I feel like it's more fun. I mean, the Saints are obviously the smart pick here. They are the favorite. They're at home by 3.5. But if I pick the Saints, I mean, I feel like I'd be very confident myself, and I need to pick the Bucks because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to see Tom Brady and Gronk win like ever again, but I feel like picking them week 1 is just going to be really exciting and make me want to pay even more attention to this game.
Dan's perpetual quest to make himself uncomfortable is one of my favorite things in the entire world.
I've been a Bills fan for a long time. It's just something
Oh, man. Sunday Night Football is next. It's Cowboys, Rams. A lot of expectations, as we mentioned earlier. This is the opening of SoFi Stadium. Dallas is favored by 2 on the road. And the Rams have all this talent like they did last year. You got maybe the best defensive player in football, maybe the best player in football in Aaron Donald at D tackle. You have weapons offensively. They just gave an extension, the Rams did, to Cooper Kupp. You have Jared Goff, who, some might say is a game manager, but has managed games very well in the last couple of years for the Rams. But they're playing the Cowboys. And like every year, there's expectations for the Cowboys to win the NFC East. There's some outlets, including CBS, that have recently picked them to go to the Super Bowl, And, I mean, I think people are overvaluing Dak. I think Dak does well versus bad teams. But I think the Cowboys should be the favorites in the NFC East. I think they're better than the Eagles. And we mentioned, my Giants season preview where they are this season. So, in terms of picks, we're all going with the boys to win on the road. I think, the smart money goes this way. And the Cowboys are going to have lofty expectations. And in this 2020 COVID year, I think it'd be fitting that the Cowboys actually have a good season instead of their, usual December woes.
Next up, Steelers versus Giants. The Steelers are 6-point favorites. Dan and I both have the Steelers in this one. I feel pretty confident in that pick. Ben Roethlisberger has been throwing the ball and getting ready in the preseason. So the Steelers have a quarterback this year. They've also got one of the premier defensive players in the AFC in TJ Watt on the end. I like the Steelers in this one, but John, you got the Giants. I think that's just you can't vote against your team.
Yeah. I mean, you break down this game, the Steelers might have the best linebacking core in football. You have Bud Dupree, who had 11 sacks last year. You have Watt, who I believe was first-team All-Pro. And you have, I forget his name, but the rookie out of Michigan, who had a great season last year too and had 6 turnovers. The name is escaping me. I'm sure we'll hear it a lot on Monday Night Football. Look, the Giants have to take steps going forward. I said it. They had 4 wins last year. Have to get, I would project 5-6 wins this year, have to take a step forward. I think they're going to lose probably. I'm going in with optimism. I'll always pick them in our picks. I think we always all pick our teams. But,
my next question was whether or not you're going to have them going 16-0.
Yeah, no, yeah. And, do I believe it? No. But, I mean, they're, I think in terms of, realistically, I think they keep it close for as long as they can. And it's a 17-point win for the Steelers. This game in MetLife Stadium, and I just want Jones to show some good flashes and for the defense to not get entirely burned. You're on primetime, right? Monday Night Football. Got to show up.
Final game of the week, Titans, Broncos. All three of us have the Titans. I think that Chargers-Bengals is the Cartoon Network game of the week, but this one's a close runner-up. We all have the Titans right here. Whatever. We'll see what happens. 2-point spread. Kind of a toss-up.
Yep, so
two teams that are kind of like just on the – I feel like the Titans kind of have gone backwards since the end of last postseason. Obviously, they made it to the AFC Championship last year. You can't really expect that from them again. And the Broncos are a team that, while they're going to compete in the AFC West, I don't know. I just don't feel great about them. So it's kind of like a matchup of two teams that are like the 7 spot in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's something that's here too that you mentioned, expanded playoffs. So maybe there'll be some I guess more competition towards the end with the expanded playoffs, but those are our week 1 NFL picks. So, go get them in wherever you have to, because that is all just straight wins. But this will do it for the first episode of MVP, Miller, Vicari, and Passante. Wherever you're watching this, you found us. It's good. We'll keep you in the loop. So where you can watch this, we're going to try to get a established time going forward. This will premiere at 12 o'clock on Sundays, at least for this episode. We will, announce the time, but we hope you're with us this season. It's going to be interesting, and there's probably going to be bumps in the road, just like there will be in the NFL season, but we're committed to, getting a weekly show out there. We all have pent-up opinions that we've, I've driven my parents crazy with and nobody else, because no one else will listen to me. So, I'm glad we got to do this. Hopefully, maybe it'll be available in podcast form and VIC in terms of the Ithaca people. That's all still being determined. But Brennan, Dan, I think this was a good first episode. I think we did good.
It's good to get back into the swing of things and, being able to yell my opinions at people as opposed to the television or at Syracuse football yesterday, who was supposed to get by 20 in the third quarter, and then the defense stopped. I got a lot of opinions about New York sports that I got to get out, and it's good to yell them at people instead of, the TV set.
Yep. It was a good first week without the cold early morning walk to the park school and then that light that flickers on my 2 favorite things in the world. But, hey, someday we will be back there, but for now we're making it work here.
Believe it or not, Dan, I miss it.
So do I. So do I, definitely, for sure.
I don't know why, but I do. I'm very comfortable right now, but yes. All right, so that will do it for MVP, the MVP show. Enjoy your week 1.